This is Kamala, disciple of Paramhansa Yogananda and minister of the Self-Realization Fellowship. How does one reconcile thoughts of personal death, of transition, with immortality? The following words are not a talk, but rather many accounts upon the subject of personal immortality. These various comments, expressed in many beautiful ways, uplift and inspire our hearts with truth. They are a testimony of belief, of individual survival beyond transition. Colonel David Marcus of West Point describes a ship of great beauty. When someone at his side said, "There, she's gone." Gone where? Gone from my sight, that is all. She is just as large as when she left my sight, just as able to bear her load of living freight. Her diminished size going in the distance is in me, not in her. And just at the moment when someone at my side says, "There, she's gone," there are other voices ready to take up the glad shout, "There she comes," and that is dying.
Today, I want to give some of the expressed thoughts of people who have told of the experience just at the time of passing, and in some instances, those who have had momentary death and have been brought back. Also, from the wisdom of a God-realized Master, Paramhansa Yogananda.
Sometimes writers express their personal feelings through a book. Helen Keller gave us her insight and perception.
She said, "Those with sight so often put their entire trust in what they see. They believe only material things are real. When a loved one dies and is no longer seen, they lose their contact. Their sense of the unseen is undeveloped, whereas the inner or mystic sense, if you will, gives me vision of the unseen. As I wander through the dark, encountering difficulties, I am aware of encouraging voices that murmur from the spirit realm. I sense the holy passion pouring down from the springs of infinity. Here in the midst of everyday air, I sense the rush of ethereal rains. I am conscious of the splendor that binds all things of earth to all things of heaven. Immured by silence and darkness, I possess the light which shall give me vision 1,000-fold when death sets me free." A devotee on the spiritual path had a terminal illness, and she told me a while before going on that she had been having a very frustrating dream. She was about to get on board a ship to sail on beyond when it went on without her, leaving her there on the pier, and she knew she would have to wait longer. After telling this to me, she said in her smiling way, "I keep wondering when I will get my passport." She was aware of herself as spirit. It was only her body that was 90 years old. She knew that she was the eternal, unchanging soul. She had separated herself from the body, as when she sometimes ruefully said, "I get awfully tired of this old lady I live with." Spirit is eternally young, and her awareness of this very greatly impressed all she knew, and it impressed her doctor, who also spoke of it. The quality of awareness of ourselves as spirit is uplifting and helpful to all.
In one talk that Paramhansaji gave, describing many interesting things about the astral world, he also included these thoughts about what happens at the time of transition. He told us this:
"When you die, you just shake off a garment. You become electricity. You go to the astral realm. You are still yourself. The astral body is the exact counterpart of the last physical form, usually the appearance the person possessed in youth. Different people experience after death differently according to their mode of living. The good, hard-working man goes to a deep, unconscious, but restful sleep for a short while, to wake up in some other region of life here on earth. Man who neglects his duties in life often has nightmares or terrible dreams, chaos and darkness. Moral man has delightful dreams. The wise man finds the astral world a better place than this world. There are different spheres there. There are gross places and finer places. Wicked men can't go into the vibrations of saints. Those who are calm do not like to associate with those who make noise all the time. Seek only those who have very spiritual vibrations. Don't waste your mental films on the dark side, but only on the beautiful soul. In Sri Yukteswar's wonderful account of this realm, recorded in Paramhansaji's autobiography, he said, "Friends of other lives easily recognize one another in the astral world and rejoice at the immortality of friendship and the indestructibility of love, often doubted at the time of the sad, delusive partings of earthly life." Master said, and I again quote, "I have many times experienced death. The spiritual eye is the telescope of the spiritual world. You can learn here now to see the astral world with spiritual vision. We go to the astral world now when we are asleep, only we are not conscious of it. The astral world has winter, which is white light. Summer is gold light, autumn is yellow light, and when it rains, it showers rainbows. There is such beauty in the other world. We are, however, only visitors to the astral realm if at death our strong desires draw us back to earth." Paramhansaji further explained that we must attain conscious samadhi while in the body to have the freedom to remain in the astral realm if we so desire, without earthly desires propelling us back. Conscious samadhi is the breathless state. This can be experienced through the Hong Saw technique which Paramhansaji taught, wherein we realize that breathlessness is deathlessness. He said, "When death comes to the ordinary man, suffocation ensues, but the yogi becomes suffused with ecstasy. This is because the yogi has learned to experience the breathless state while in the body. St. Paul described this when he said, 'I protest by the rejoicing which I have in Christ, I die daily.'"
Gladys Smith has given us an unusually beautiful description of the time of transition. She has expressed it in a book entitled David the King. David is speaking, and I will use the exact words that she has given to him.
"And now it seemed to him that if he suffered at all, suspended as he was on the vibrant tides of music, borne up as he was on quivering veils of light, he suffered not from bodily pain, but from the intensity of love. 'Ah, God,' he thought in wonderment, 'I have loved so many of the sons and daughters of men, and so many have gone forth before me, that it cannot be a great matter to rise up and follow after.' And as he gasped and raised himself upon his elbow, for they were there with him in the room, all who had journeyed out before him, all the beloved dead, they came toward him through the shining swathes of mist, his mother and father, holding out their withered arms to him and saying, 'Are you not the flower of our latter years? Are you not our little one, our blameless child?' Then from the midst of all the voices of life that sang through the strengthening dawn, a single voice rose clear and piercing above all the others. 'Is it the song of a bird?' he said, but he knew that it was an inward sound. It was one high tone, wild and shatteringly sweet, lifted above the clanging, as if it were a cymbal in his heart, and the mists parted above, rent by the sound, and as the rising sun broke like a hosanna of triumph upon the room, all those whom he had loved, the dead and the living alike, became as incorporeal as light and merged before his amazed eyes into one. And he said aloud in wonderment, 'Behold, there are not many, but only one everlasting and and changeless beloved. From the first hour when I reached out my hand to touch my mother's breast, until now, when I take my last leave of my little one, I have sought only after God. For to love, to yearn, to lose oneself utterly in any mortal beloved is to strive darkly, imperfectly, in spite of all the exigencies of the flesh and the world, and unto whom we go at last. All these, the dead and the living, all these and I myself were divided from the eternal and the changeless only for a little while. Behold, the sweet bond of mortal tenderness is loosed. The heaviness of flesh drops from me. The world falls away. The hills and valleys are lost to me in veils of living light. A moment, only a moment, and I will be merged forever in the Lord and those whom I have loved. Why should I tarry? Into your hands I render up my spirit, O my God. Paramhansa Yogananda said, reflect that someday you will suddenly have to leave everything in the world. So make the acquaintanceship of God now. Make God the pole star of your life. Edison seemed to glimpse the world beyond because his last words spoken were these: "It is very beautiful over there." And a little girl, at what would seem the sad moment of leaving, said, "Oh, Mommy, it's a party." It's difficult for us in our hearts to separate the soul that resides in a dearly loved body, which we have long, long known and loved, from the spirit. And yet, the body has only been a temporary dwelling place. When the final curtain comes down upon a beautiful drama, we have been so engrossed in it that it is not always easy to remember that the loved player who is out of our sight is still alive and active backstage, where the great director is looking after his welfare.
Rudyard Kipling had wonderful insight into the attainment of divine consciousness, and he has expressed this in his book, Kim. He describes the experience of transition of one who has spent his entire life seeking spiritual attainment.
In the story Kim, the wise Lama sought and sought for the river of the arrow wherein he would bathe and receive enlightenment. This, through a lifetime of seeking, he found. It came at the time of death, and he passed beyond this realm. And yet, at this moment, he remembered his beloved friend, disciple, the boy Kim. He must go back. He must not go on yet. So he returned. As Kim sits by his beloved Lama, the Lama tells Kim, "When we came out of the hills, I was troubled for thee and for other matters which I held in my heart. The boat of my soul lacked direction. I could not see into the cause of things. So I took no food. I drank no water. Still I saw not the way. I sat in meditation 2 days and 2 nights, abstracting my mind, in-breathing and out-breathing in the required manner. Upon the second night, so great was my reward, the wise soul loosed itself from the silly body and went free. This I have never before attained, though I have stood on the threshold of it. Yea, my soul went free, and wheeling like an eagle, saw instead that there was no Lama nor any other soul. As a drop falls into water, so my soul drew near to the great soul, which is beyond all things. I saw all places from the hills to the sea, and everywhere that we had passed, for they were within my soul, and I knew by this that my soul had passed beyond the illusion of time and space and of things. By this I knew that I was free. I saw thee lying in thy cot, and I saw thee falling down the hill under the idolater, at one time, in one place, in my soul, which, as I say, had touched the great soul. Also I saw the stupid body of the Lama lying down, myself. and the Hakan from Dhaka kneeled beside, shouting in its ear. Then my soul was all alone, and I saw nothing, for I was all things, having reached the great soul. And I meditated 1,000,000 years, passionless, well aware of the cause of all things. Then a voice cried, "What shall come to the boy if thou art dead?" And I was shaken back and forth in myself with pity for thee, and I said, "I will return to my Chila, lest he miss the way." Upon this, my soul, which is the soul of the Lama, withdrew itself from the great soul with strivings and yearnings and retchings and agonies not to be told, as the egg from the fish, as the fish from the water, as the water from the cloud, as the cloud from the thick air, so put forth, so leaped out, so drew away, so fumed up the soul of the Lama from the great soul. And I looked down upon all the world, which was as I had seen it before, one in time, one in place. Son of my soul, I have wrenched my soul back from the threshold of freedom to free thee from all sin. As I am free and sinless, come. He crossed his hands on his lap and smiled, as a man may who has won salvation for himself and his beloved.
A beautiful and true insight into the immortality of the soul is given to us by these words of Paramhansa Yogananda.
Births and deaths are only the rising and falling of waves on the surface of the ocean of God. When a wave rises to the bosom of the ocean, it is born. But when the wave sinks down into the ocean, it is not dead. It has simply gone back to the ocean depths from whence it came. Thus, when this short earthly drama is over, the wave returns to the bosom of the ocean of God, fully awake, fully aware, in greater wisdom, and free from the confining restrictions of matter. Just as important as fearlessness of the great adventure death is courage to live. Captain Eddie Rickenbacker of World War I had an almost fatal accident. He said, "I was all but gone. Even though I was almost unconscious, I knew I was icy cold. Everything was serene and lovely. Everything was mellow and sweet and beautiful. I recognized that sensation. I had almost died once before, and so I thought, here is death. It dawned on me in a flash that it is the easiest thing in the world to die. The hardest is to live. Dying is a sensuous pleasure. Living is a grim task. In that moment, I chose to live. I knew from experience that abandonment to death was a sin. I was giving up my job. I was quitting the battle. I had work to do. I had others to serve. I began to fight. I mustered up all the discipline I had learned in racing days. I threw my weight and jammed the control. And believe it or not, the thought came to my mind of life and of service. Krishna has said that this, the indweller in the bodies of all, is ever indestructible. Even as a man casts off worn-out clothes and puts on others which are new, so the embodied casts off worn-out bodies and enters into others which are new. This self, weapons cannot cut, fire cannot burn, water cannot wet, wind cannot dry. Changeless, all-pervading, the self is eternal. And we know the words of David, praying to God, "Thou hast been our dwelling place in all generations." In writing words of consolation, Paramhansa Yogananda once said, "The temple of your Son belonged to God, and he gave it to love and serve. But when it was his will, he took away what already belonged to him. This life is a novel, and the Divine Mother is the writer. Each page is full of contradictions until the answer is revealed in the last chapter of this book. So please do not question this, but go on with limitless fortitude until you are completely immersed in the Divine Spirit. Remain anchored in the infinite, which is changeless, and He will satisfy all the demands of your heart. Paramhansaji told us, just as the wave's home is in the ocean, our home is in God. I want you to bathe in the ocean of infinity. The joy of God is boundless and ever new.
And now to conclude this talk with the words of Krishna. Never the Spirit was born. The Spirit shall cease to be never. Time never was, it was not. End and beginning are dreams. Timeless and birthless and deathless remaineth the Spirit forever. Time has not changed it at all, dead though the house of it seems.